Hello everyone, welcome back. This is Object-Oriented Programming, or OOP for short. I'm going to teach you a little bit about data structures today. You have learned about data structures before, but only in array form. The first thing I'm going to start at is when you create an object, you first need to create a class or a header type file. As you see, I got the .h here. I'm going to create a header file, and start with keyword class. Name the class that you're creating, and then you start with your opening bracket and then end with the closing bracket. Okay, so that's the basic class form. Now inside the class you'll have the keywords public followed by a colon and the keyword private followed by a colon. And so anything inside of public is meant to be used as an object. Anything inside of private is only meant to be used inside the methods within the class, which I'll describe that more later here. Okay, so this is a basic method, although it's just a constructor in this case. A method might have no return type. Okay, so in order to represent this, we'd say void. Okay, now a method could do anything from returning data to passing data into it to figure out calculations and then returning data, or just passing values in to figure out calculations and print it out, and that's it. You could do a bunch of different things, so you can create different methods, different functions, as they're really, as you probably have heard them before, they're the same thing. Really, it's the same thing, but it's only within the class. It's only from that class that you can use it. It'll all make sense more here later as I get into more about objects and stuff like that. Okay, so just for an example, we're going to use what they call a getter and a setter. So we might have something like get name. Maybe have a class that's going to get the name of the card, or a method that's going to get the name of the card. Okay, we don't need we would need a return type if we were going to get something. In this case, we're going to get a name, so it would probably be a string. So we'll change this to string, and of course we already know that in C++, if you use a string, you've got to include that as you got to include the library in order to use it. Okay, so you probably have to include that inside of your class up above. And then, but for this example, I'm just going to go through and just show you how this works. And actually, just for better measures, I'm just going to use integer like I've done for everything else, so that it doesn't have to go into that. And we'll make it get number instead. Okay, so we're going to get a number, and it's going to return the number. All right, in this part, we're just gonna basically declare it. That's it. We're gonna get it all initialized, like we're gonna tell it that it's there within the class. Okay, then the next thing we might want to set it. Okay, so we obviously don't need a return if we're just setting a number. Alright, so we use a void for that. So we type set number. And then inside, of course, we're going to have to pass something that we're setting. So we're going to need some kind of integer to pass the number. And then you can name it whatever you want. This doesn't have to match anything. This is just telling it what's going on. Except for when you use this inside of your CPP, which I'm going to do next here. Okay, so now we have int get number and int set number. So now we can return the number or we can set it, and it's going to remember it within this object, or this class, as you've known it so far. This ultimately is transformed into an object, and you'll see how. Okay, now we're going to jump down here to where we've created the CPP. This would actually be inside of a new file. This is why I put .cpp for cards, or card class I should have, to make it more exact, so because this is the name here, card. Okay, and then we'd take this without the semicolon because we don't need that. We'll take the data type along with it, copy it, come down below, paste it. Now, one thing we're missing in between our data type and our get number is the class name, and we need to put two colons, and inside the compiler or the IDE for Visual Studio, this would automatically pop up and tell you what methods you can use. Okay, as soon as you put these 2 colons in, it would pop up after your class name. Okay, I was saying here, okay, so we're using card, so we're going to put card in here, and 2 colons, that's how it would start. We have a starting bracket and an ending bracket. And that would be how our first method would be set up, and then we can put whatever it's going to do inside of this. Okay, and then I'll jump down and do the other one real quick here. Void. Copy. Paste. Get rid of the semicolon. There we go, and this is starting and ending bracket. Okay. I need our card in there again. For each of these, every time you make a method, you're going to need to do this. Okay, so obviously, if we're going to get a number, we need a number. So in this case, just ignore this. I'm just showing you an example. The cards will be a little too sophisticated for this example, so I was going to try to explain that, but I decided not to. So instead, we're going to have int number. There you go. We're going to use this variable as private. It's only going to be able to be seen through these methods that we've created that are public, so that we can call the method, but we cannot call the variable. Okay? So in other words, this cannot be changed unless it's being called through this class. Okay.
It's Grandma come to my birthday.
Excuse me, I got my son in the background
Grandma
here.
come to my birthday. Isn't she always?
Okay, then the first thing we need to do is for the get is to return the integer. Okay, so we're going to return number. And it's going to return that value. So now when when we create an object of card, and we call the get number function, it's going to find the variable within that object named number, and it's going to get its value as it's been set, and it's going to return it. Okay, so we have our set number. The thing we need to do is set number to number. Now, I just seen something here. I don't want this to be the same as my actual variable, so I'd change this a little bit. And usually you can just change it to uppercase or lowercase so that you know the difference. But so the compiler knows the difference. Okay, so now we're passing in number. So of course we want our object variable to equal the number that's being passed in because we're setting it. Okay, so we change this number equals the number being passed in, and we end that with a semicolon. And it's a simple example of how methods work. Okay, now the next thing we do to use this stuff to come down to our main, which we learned before is always inside of our program, and now we can actually use our objects. So I've created, or use our class, I'm sorry, it's already named card, so we know that. We have a header for it, and inside of our CPP we have our methods and our functions, the things that's going to happen when these methods are called. Okay, now if we come down here, the first thing we need to do is actually create the object. In order to do that, we say the class name followed by the variable name that we want to call it. So I always, when I create an object to let me know that it's an object, I always say the class name A, and then capitalize a card. So now I know it's an object of a card. It's a card. Okay. So we create the object. And then we come down and we use the object. So say we had an integer that's just a random number. and we set it right away to 7 as the random number. Okay, we could take our A card object and then put our dot there, and it'll bring up inside of the IDE, like it did before, the IntelliSense, to decide what methods you can use for that object, which would be the get number and set number that we created. Now you can keep creating more methods within this class and keep using different methods in order to do your functions that you want to do. Okay, so we could just take this A card and say set, what did I say it was? Set number. Okay, set number, and then the random number variable that we're passing in. Now that would change this number variable to 7, and it would store it. Now this would later change. This would stay as 7. Okay, so we're saving it within the object. The objects are going to be like a little database for where we're going to store all these variable values. And you can see how this is going to be really handy. Okay, then we could do the same thing. We could use a cout statement and say get number, and that would simply return the value of the number and print it out to the screen. And that would be it for object-oriented programming. I think that pretty much explains it.